Welcome to Ozarks Crime Watch, where the shadows of the Ozarks come to light. We search the forgotten corners, uncovering unsolved mysteries, missing persons, and cold cases that still haunt our region. Join us where every story matters, every voice deserves to be heard, and no case should ever be forgotten. In the Ozarks, the past never really stays buried, and somewhere out there, someone still knows the truth.
And welcome back to Ozarks Crime Watch Season 2. This evening we're going to be investigating the case of Sandra Spoon, who disappeared from Joplin, Missouri in 2005. As you can see, I've got a great team of investigators here with me today. Let's go ahead and meet everybody.
Hi, I'm Marina.
Hey y'all, Sarah here, back at it with the Ozarks Crime Watch crew, ready to dive in and get into Season 2.
Hey everyone, I'm Whitney, excited to dig into this case.
Hey everybody, I'm Connor. It's good to be back, Season 2, ready to go for 10 rounds again.
Hey everybody, it's Joe. Glad to be back for another season of Ozarks Crime Watch, and really excited about this particular case that we're getting ready to dive into.
Hey y'all, this is Sally, and I'm happy to be back for Season 2 and to keep these people alive in our thoughts and bring everyone into the realm of helping to solve some unsolved things and mysteries of the Ozarks.
Hey everybody, I'm Kendrick. I'm excited to dive into one of these for the first time.
Hey everybody, Kat Callahan here, also excited for my first time as well.
And of course, I'm Josh Shackles, local historian and longtime resident in Joplin. I am so excited to dive into this case because as we were investigating this, I learned that I had a very close personal connection to this case. So let's go ahead and get right into the case file.
The case file. On the night of August 28th, 2005, 57-year-old Sandra Louise Sandy Spoon vanished without a trace in Joplin, Missouri. Nearly 2 decades later, her disappearance remains one of the most haunting, unsolved cases in the 4-state region. Spoon was known among friends and family as a dependable, kind-hearted woman who worked as a nurse's aide at the Meadows Care Center in Joplin. She lived quietly with her sister, Neva Stipp, at 2308 South Byers Avenue, just off 22nd Street. To those who knew her best, Sandy was responsible and caring, not someone who would ever disappear willingly. On that late summer Sunday, Sandy had spent the day with her sister before making evening plans with a coworker from the care center. Around 10 p.m., the two left to visit a mutual acquaintance who lived in an apartment on Pearl Avenue, specifically in the 1600 block of Pearl, south of downtown Joplin. That acquaintance was a man named Edward G. Monroe, a 44-year-old local resident who lived upstairs in the home. Accounts gathered by investigators suggest the group was socializing casually when Monroe began making unwanted advances toward Spoon. She reportedly rejected him, and sometime afterward, Monroe offered to give her a ride home in his brown 4-door 1981 Oldsmobile Omega. That ride would be the last time anyone saw Sandra Spoon alive. According to Monroe's statement to police, he drove Spoon around for a short time and then dropped her off near the corner of 22nd Street and Byers Avenue, just 1 block from her home. He claimed that she exited the vehicle and that he left the area shortly afterward. But when Monroe returned later that night, reportedly between midnight and 2 a.m., Sandra was nowhere to be found. The next morning, she failed to show up for work, something her coworkers immediately noticed. When she missed a second shift, her sister reported her missing to the Joplin Police Department on Tuesday, August 30th, 2005. Lieutenant Carl Francis, the department's spokesman at the time, told reporters that Sandy's sudden disappearance was completely out of character. He confirmed to the Joplin Globe that police highly suspected foul play. The first major lead came from witnesses at the Pearl Avenue residence, who confirmed that Monroe had indeed been with Spoon that night. Investigators quickly identified Monroe as a person of interest, describing him as a white male, approximately 6 feet 1 inch tall, 190 pounds, with brown hair, blue eyes, and a tattoo of a duck on his left arm. Detectives soon learned that Monroe's story was inconsistent. Several witnesses reported seeing him in an area far from Byers Avenue during the early morning hours of August 29th. One particularly compelling tip described seeing Monroe's brown Oldsmobile parked near Shoal Creek, close to McIndoe Park, around September 2nd, 2005. The witness claimed to have seen a man resembling Monroe walking out of a wooded area toward the car. On September 13th, 2005, less than 3 weeks after Sandra vanished, the Newton County Sheriff's Department dive team conducted a full search of Shoal Creek. Investigators combed the area near McIndoe Park, but found no trace of Spoon or her belongings. Despite the lack of physical evidence, detectives remained convinced she met with foul play. Born in 1961, Edward G. Monroe lived in the upstairs apartment where the party had taken place. He was familiar with both Spoon and her co-worker, and he became the last known person to see her alive. Police questioned Monroe multiple times, but never charged him with any crime. Detective Andy Blair and Lieutenant Francis both stated that Monroe's timeline didn't match what witnesses reported. Nevertheless, with no body and no confession, the case stalled. Monroe died in August 2007, only 2 years after Sandra's disappearance, taking any secrets he held with him to the grave. Though authorities stopped short of naming him as a formal suspect, every public record, including the Missouri State Highway Patrol Missing Persons Report, the Charlie Project, and the Doe Network, identifies him as the individual most closely linked to the case. Joplin residents followed the case closely, with the Joplin Globe running several updates throughout late 2005 and 2006. Despite continued tips, no physical evidence surfaced. No purse, car keys, clothing, or remains. Sandy's entry was added to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, NamUs case number MP5568, and the Missouri State Highway Patrol database, where it remains active today. Almost 20 years later, Sandra L. Spoon's name still appears on the Missouri State Highway Patrol's missing persons list. Her file remains active under case number 05-42684 with the Joplin Police Department, who continue to accept tips through their Missing Persons Division. Sandy's loved ones have never stopped hoping for closure. Somebody knows something, her daughter told reporters years ago. We just need them to come forward. For anyone with information, the Joplin Police Department can be reached at 417-623-3131, and the Missouri Missing Persons Clearinghouse accepts confidential tips through 573-526-6178.
First thoughts.
All right, so when this first happened, a lot of us were living here in the area. Would anybody care to share their initial thoughts, or their initial thoughts when they first learned about this case as part of our investigation?
So I wasn't around when this happened and first took place, but I will say it was probably one of the few that I heard of before I ever really started looking at cases around here. So I will say, like, when Joe brought her up a few times in the first season, I had already known the name and I'd already heard about the case a little bit. So that definitely tells me that somewhere there was some notoriety to it.
I know it was 2017 or 18 when I first became familiar with this case and looked into it. But it's one of those cases that I think it's different than some of the other ones that we have covered, and that it seems like it's a case that has a lot more answers than it does questions. Like, there's just a tremendous amount of information available in this case.
That's interesting because I actually had the opposite perspective, but I have not got to do as much research as you guys have. We're looking at all these cases, but
Right, well, that makes sense.
my first thought was, I was just completely shocked that somebody could just disappear into thin air in such a short amount of time. And I don't know, it just seems like he'd be found quickly if the guy that we think is a suspect did it. It just doesn't seem like much time.
Right.
One thing that we've added for season 2 is an extra period where our team gathers together and reviews the case before we record this episode. And definitely, you had a lot of questions during that period, and hopefully we were able to find some of the answers to those.
I think to Joe's point too, like, and I see your side of it, where it doesn't seem like there's a lot of evidence, but to Joe's point, I think the evidence up there has a lot of weight. Like, there's a lot of substance to that, where it's like, kind of, everybody kind of knows what happened, and no one's really questioning that. It seems like, and I guess the first thought of that just is, why can there have been more done?
Right.
That's my first thought.
Yeah.
You know, I remember this kind of from when it happened. And other than Tracy Pickett, this was the first person that I remember missing from Joplin. But even at that time, I felt like, man, this is going to be an open and shut case. They're going to figure this out pretty much right away. Another first thought is coming back to the case and doing our investigation into this. There was only 3 times in the history of the Joplin Globe that we could find that this was mentioned in the paper.
Yeah. Wow.
So, you know, that's very different than some cases that we've seen where there's 50 articles about, you know, someone missing. This has 3.
And they're all the same. There's not one single lick of information that is revealed between, you know, the first news story and the last. So I want to know where all the information is, or what was really being done, or what information was put out there that advanced interest in the case.
When you look at the timeline, what details stand out to you guys? And we have Sandra Spoon going with her sister to a coworker's house for a gather. The notes say party, but, you know, gathering. I think this is probably a party, a small party. It's not a very big apartment. In our research, we found that this was on the 1600 block of Pearl, and Kendrick had the idea of essentially going to that block and looking at what houses in that block could have an upstairs tenant, and there was really only one. So this has several apartments inside of what used to be a residential single-family home, transitioned into multiple apartments. So they were all very small. So it couldn't have been like a party of like 50 people. It was probably 8.
Yeah, and I thought it was very weird when looking through the newspaper articles that when they talked about the address of the party, there was simply just the 1600 block.
Mm-hmm.
When I looked it up, it, you know, like you said, it looked pretty obvious, and it seemed like it would be a pretty big detail to jog someone's memory when your coworker or your sister disappears.
Right.
I thought that was very strange.
I think as far as the timeline, what kind of stands out to me is Edward Monroe just spending 2 hours driving around is what he said.
Driving around.
Yeah, just driving around.
That was the biggest first thing for me, was the time they left the party to the time he returned. That's just what I don't. How does someone dispose of, or you know, whatever happened to this person? How does that happen?
Yeah, because in that 2 hours, part of it was spent supposedly dropping her off at 22nd and Byers. So, you know, did he drop her off? Did they drive around and talk for 2 hours? Did they go somewhere for a while? You know, those, I think, that's a real important question. And who knows what he told the people at the party when he returned? Because I believe he lived upstairs over it, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know Edward lived upstairs. Did she know him prior? That was my question. I couldn't find that anywhere.
It doesn't.
Because they visited an acquaintance that they both knew, but I didn't know if she actually had met him prior.
So I don't think it said anywhere
Okay.
in anything that we could find whether they had known each other, that Sandra and her sister were visiting a coworker and that he hit on her and she turned him down.
And that's where it kind of gets a little weird, starts getting weird for me, is if they're all watching and they're around and they notice that he's making advances and she's not, she doesn't want them, how did they end up, I'm assuming, letting them drive off together?
Yeah, that was
How
a
was
question I had
that?
on my
And that's
list
still-
as well.
And it doesn't seem like any of the information we've looked at that there's any information from the interviews that would have happened from people at the party or the sister or the coworker. Like, that's all very strange to me.
And there was the one person that said, the witness said he told them that he was gonna go spend the night at her house that was there at the party.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about his intentions when they left. And like you said, she wasn't reciprocating, so why would they let her leave with him?
On location.
Hey guys, we're here today with Ozarks Crime Watch, and we're covering the case of Sandra Spoon, who went missing on August 28, 2005. During the investigation, police were informed by a witness that a person matching the description of the man Sandra was last seen with was coming out of the woods near McIndoe Park. And that's where we are today. And we're just going to try to walk the trail a little bit, look around and see if we can come up with some idea of where her remains may be.
Let's go take a look. All right, guys, we're here across the street over in the wooded area where there were no trails yet or anything. And this is an area that we landed upon. I don't think anybody's getting anybody up there.
But it seems like it would be a good idea if you're trying to hide a body, especially if what reports, I think it said that when the police went to do the search, they said that the areas that they would need to really search and excavate were going to be really hard to do without really disturbing, the land around it. I mean,
it is a bit hard to imagine with the trail and
then think about it though, like if you want to hide it, and
you wouldn't be able to, or have a problem, or need to excavate this area because it's so open. You could just take dogs through there, or even ground penetrating radar.
I wonder if that wasn't a part of the trail that happened though, if they took out, did some tree clearing maybe, I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know if it extended down here or not.
This almost seems like new dirt. Like, look at that. That's maybe, I feel like
yeah, when they were building
Yeah.
out here, they moved dirt over. So
it looks like it goes up just to right that area. Like,
But-
maybe, but
who knows?
let's go take a look down this trail a little further. All right, we've come down a little bit northwest on this new trail here, about 100 yards, I would say. And we're behind the water treatment plant, correct? That was here in 2005 already. And right along there is a little gravel road off the main road that goes by McIndoe Park. So
that little road drive she's talking about would be a great place to pull over if you wanted to do something nefarious in this area.
Yeah.
And again, the witnesses said he came from the north side of the park.
Yeah. This doesn't seem as steep to me either.
And where we're at right now, there's a trail, a walking trail that's level. But at that time, the woods and the grass behind me extended out even further up to the fence line of the water treatment plant.
All right, let's go check out some more and see what we find, guys.
All right, we are here at the creek area what we would call the water's edge, where a witness had said they had seen the suspect in Sandra Spoon's disappearance walking back and forth the night of her disappearance. Now we're still on the trail that's rather new. The creek type area has been here for many years, so it's very possible that someone would bring someone all the way out here. Perhaps the conditions were a little different to where it'd be easier to bury or hide underneath something.
Yeah.
During one of the searches, the dogs did alert at an area near a body of water. Wasn't clear if it was this creek that we're standing next to that's currently dry or Show Creek, but it was a body of water.
I'd like to add that out of everything we've seen, this area to me seems like the most probable of, what happened. So what they say or think might have happened.
So that's our visit today to the site where Sandra Spoon was allegedly taken to. A witness said that the man that she was last seen with was seen leaving woods near where we're at right now on the night of her disappearance.
Theory time.
All right, so we're moving into theory time. And we kind of have an idea of who the main suspect is. But what do you guys think actually happened?
Well, his alibi and the timeline they don't match up at all.
She may have tried to get away or got back in advance and something accidental happened and he panicked and left her somewhere.
So I have a theory that he may have said, hey, I'm going to take you home, but then instead said, let's go down to Low Water Bridge for a little while. Maybe we can go down there and make out, or just sit and talk, and that things went bad from there. So in my theory, it wasn't really like he had an idea in his mind ahead of time, hey, I'm going to kill this woman, but more of a crime of passion in that moment. And that would fit with the witness that potentially saw him down near McIndoe Park walking back and forth into the woods, because then he's already there and goes, oh, I got to figure out what to do with her.
So what do you think he did with her?
Well, I don't know, because they've spent a lot of time looking.
2008, they did a search. It's the last search that I'm aware of, and they've said that dogs have indicated at the water's edge.
Just knowing that time of year though, and they even said it was shallow. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she went into the water, but that area there, they've said is too overgrown to be able to get into and do a proper search without disturbing it with the equipment that it would take to move it out. But, I don't know, they could burn it as far as I'm concerned and take care of it and then go in.
I mean,
And most of that land is owned by the city now. It wasn't at that time, but it is now. So I wonder what it would take to convince the police to go do a little bit of searching. They're cutting trees in that area already for the trails.
Well, one of the things it would take is for the people that are watching this podcast right now to contact Joplin Police Department and ask questions about Sandra Spoon. What's the status of the case? We can do that on any case that we cover. We recommended it highly when we were doing the Sarah Burton case, and this is another case where somebody may have been at that party. Somebody may have just heard something at some point.
I mean, I think it's not a large area in the grand scheme of things when you're looking at missing person case. I mean, we're not talking, 10 square miles here. It's a small area. So I think my main theory kind of revolves around, was she even left there or was it coincidence that someone happened to see him in the area at the time? Like you said, if they're going back and forth to the car, maybe they are there, they're continuing drinking, they're going back to the car for more drinks. Something happens because he was gone for a long time. Like there's a lot of places he could have gone, a lot of places she could have been left during that time frame. So the timeline with it not being solid makes me wonder, you know, if he saw someone that saw him there, maybe his first instinct is, oh, I got to clean up this scene and go somewhere else. So is she even there?
Was anyone at the party interviewed? Her coworker or just curious if anyone
There was
found
only
that?
one thing I saw, Fred, that said
I'm
that he told someone that he was going to stick some night at her house.
I mean, I know it was a get together, but what were they doing? Were they
Right.
drinking? You know, just what was their state?
I want to say one more thing that I thought was important was
Yeah.
their ages. That like when I heard this, that's not what I was imaging. And she was what, how old?
57
And he was
40.
44.
45 when it happened, or 47 when it happened, 49.
It's not that old.
Well, but I mean, we're not imaging a party and then
Like, what's the demographic?
Right, and we're
Right.
saying we let them, their friends let them leave the party together. It's like, I don't know, I feel like that's more of a.
I would imagine they were probably drinking, you know, if he's telling people he's going to spend the night with her and that type of, you know, environment.
I'm just curious how many people were at the party. Was it, you know, crowded enough that if he was making advances, maybe it was in a, someone didn't see. Maybe no one saw that is what I'm wondering. So
Do we know how many days or the time frame was for when like the witness came forward about seeing down at the water bridge between the disappearance and now? Was there that time frame disclosed?
I think it was pretty quick.
For sure.
It was within.
It was like a week or something, or yeah.
I mean, so that's kind of a little bit of time for me in the sense of like someone being able to go back. Only because someone saw him there that night.
Well, they searched the property there too within 3 weeks, I think,
Yeah.
right? Around.
And they questioned him, and again, just like a lot of cases, if there's no body, then they don't have anything to do except a missing person. And an adult can be missing, it's not illegal.
So looking at the articles, the first article that came out about her was on September 4th, 2005. And then on September 14th, 10 days later, there was an article about them searching the creek.
2005. Okay. That would have been the initial search if it's 2005.
Yeah, that would have been the first time they searched that area. But that means that somebody had to have come forward in between those two articles.
Mm-hmm.
Probably pretty quick for them to organize that fast, something like that. I mean,
Close to home.
All right, close to home. I'm going to go ahead and start this off because we learned during our investigation that she lived at 2308 South Byers. And while not at the same time, I lived directly across the street at 2319 South Byers for almost a decade. So it really doesn't get much closer to home than that her home was directly across the street from where I lived. Every single day, I would walk out my front door to get in my car, and I would see her house. Now, I didn't know at that time it was her house, but you really can't get much closer to home than that. So I guess one question that I have for you guys is, we know that this was only in the media a few times. Any thought about why this was only covered a few times, and then other cases like Sarah Burton's case are covered over and over and over again?
I would think that it had something to do with how persistent the family
Yes.
was about it.
Right.
I mean, I think I may have heard that they were a little persistent, but definitely not as persistent as, Sarah Burton's family and friends have been.
Yeah.
I think that's also on top of like maybe the complexity of the case, because this one in a lot of ways seems kind of open and shut in a lot of ways if you're really looking into it. And it just seems like there's just a lack of evidence of like, well,
Very
without it, Yeah, and so there's not much complexity to it. It's kind of simple, and that's kind of the way I look at it. In a way, the Sarah Burton case is really complex. There's a lot of different layers to it. You can peel that back however many times you want, and you'll still find more
Yeah,
to question. So,
But I think that in itself is part of what bothers me the most about this case is that it does seem so straightforward and so cut and dry. So why don't we have resolution on it?
right.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't help the guy also, passed away a couple years after it happened. So
Right.
That too.
But I mean, we're talking, this was in 2005. I know that was 20 years ago, but it's not like this happened in, the 1950s or something. So
I wonder if, again, age doesn't have something to do with it, gaining popularity and things like that. And I don't know.
That's very possible.
I mean, I feel like, are you saying, I guess, that like she's not like the perfect victim or not the victim that attracts the demographic
Perhaps that, yeah, just knowing the kind of stories the media likes to jump on top of, and they're,
something that they can really
woman is 57
capitalize
years
on.
old, exactly.
Yeah.
And then this guy, he's kind of a little bit of a nobody, and then ends up moving away right away. Doesn't have much family in the area, and then dies 2 years later. So I don't know. And
there's not much marketing.
Yeah, and apparently has no history.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
it's really unfortunate, and I really think that age has a lot to do with it here. And people are like, "Oh, it's not from young, so it's just not as tragic, perhaps," but it is, and it's it's awful.
Final thoughts.
After reviewing everything, what is it that stands out the most to you guys? And where do you think we could find resolution in this case? What does justice look like?
I don't know if there would ever be a resolution, but I think if there could be something that maybe we could carry forward, it is that little bit of like thinking, like everyone was saying, like if there's somebody at the party who's hitting on someone who's being a little creepy, maybe being that friend who seems a little overprotective, or who takes the moment to be like, are you sure you want to do this? Or like and even each of us as an individual, maybe look at our lives a little bit and some of the chances that we've taken in the past that have been okay. And learn from those, and learn like a lot of these cases we covered are people who just seems like maybe innocently made one wrong turn or one wrong
One small
one
decision
thing.
changed everything. Yeah.
and maybe just think a little bit and not take a chance. I think there's a balance like between you don't want to walk around afraid of everyone and everything. However, there are some chances maybe not go alone in a car with someone that you don't know when you've been drinking and they've been drinking. And if you feel uncomfortable, listen to your gut.
Yeah.
I think when I think of justice on any of the cases that we cover, I think about what justice or closure would look like for the family.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's something that's really kind of impossible to answer because I'm not the family. But I think in this case, it would require, a concentrated effort by law enforcement to go down to the last place where anybody thinks she may have been and do a serious search down there. If they don't find anything, then at least they tried. But because I think one of the hardest things that these families have to go through is not having on several of these cases, is not having a final resting place to go and visit their loved one. And to me, that's just, because even with this case, when somebody posted the information regarding Edward Monroe's Find-A-Grave information, my mind for some reason went immediately to, where Sandra's buried. And it was like, she's not, that's the whole thing. And I think that's just heart-wrenching.
Absolutely. I know that her family that is still around would certainly love to be able to put some closure to this case.
Yes.
And say, we know what happened, or we know where she is, and we've finally been able to bring her home.
You know, and the people that are tuning into this podcast, you know, they're able to help by contacting the Joplin Police Department. Again, I've mentioned this earlier, and just asking, hey, what's the status of this case? You know, what are you guys doing about it? You know, that's our right. And, you know, it may just be something they haven't thought about, you know, for a while.
Is there a way to report anonymously also?
Oh, yeah, if you have a tip, you can definitely report anonymously.
One of the things that stands out for me about this case is the amount of information we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a bunch of people went to a party. We don't, yeah. Being where we live here in Joplin, like, it could very well be a lot of like illegal drug activity in this party, which could be one of the reasons why you don't hear much about much of the information, why like they were very vague about the address. And it makes me wonder, did anybody even actually see them leave together? Did he just come in and say something to someone like, hey, I want to go spend the night at this girl's house? And then, you know, how long has she been in trouble, unconscious, or whatever it is that may be? Like, I think that one of the biggest things is if we could just get someone to tell a little more about this gathering, you could probably learn a lot more. But I could see them not wanting to throw any of their friends under the bus because if they're there, there's illegal drugs. And
Right.
you know, there's.
I mean, we don't know that whatever happened to her didn't happen to her at that party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people covering it up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're under the influence, your timeline perception may be off too, so
Mhm.
it's a great point.
Well, if there's anybody out there that does have information about this case, whether you were at the party, maybe you lived at the house, maybe you were down at the creek. If something that we've talked about jogs your memory, please reach out to the Joplin Police Department, 417-623-3131, or get a hold of us and we'll make sure that you get in touch with the right investigator. So next week, we're going to be covering the case of Branson Perry. And I imagine that most of us don't know much about that case. So we all have a lot to learn, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. We'll see you then. Have a good night. Bye.